Hello, my name is Andreas Loizou and I'd like to welcome you to your course on modern business writing. Now the course splits into 4 very distinct sections. Unlike many other courses you've been on or on the books that you can buy, we actually begin by looking at the reader. If you can understand what the reader wants from your writing, you're half of the way there to being a really good writer. So in our first section, we're going to look at what the reader wants you to deliver. Our second section is about you, the writer. So we're going to talk about how you can become a writer of influence, someone who changes what the reader thinks or feels or believes or acts about anything you're writing. Also in this section, we'll look at creating the ideal conditions for you to write. And we'll also talk a little bit more about the emotions that come up when you're writing. Writing often makes people nervous. And if you can actually recognise those slight pangs of fear that you might feel, again, this is great. This is a really great way into becoming a more relaxed and confident writer. Section 3, we look at structure, how to structure anything from a really short email to a 500-page report. Some of the classics of structure we're going to look at include the pyramid approach and also the SCQA introduction. I'm also going to spend a fair amount of time on showing you how to write summaries. If your summary is read, even if your report isn't even lifted up, you may have actually been a successful writer. Our last section is about words. I'm going to talk about words to cut and words to use, how to build strong sentences that stay with the reader. And the last thing we're going to look at is what to do before you press send. Many of us are really eager to get that document out the door. I want you to stop and focus on polishing your work, editing it, and most important of all, getting feedback. Okay, so let's dive straight in. Section 1, Module 1. Simple question, what does a reader want from your writing? The answer to this is simple as well. It gets much more complex and we look at it in much more depth, but there are 3 things you need to show a reader. Or to be strictly accurate, you need to show at least one of these 3 things to be read. The first factor you need to get across is that your writing is useful. Useful means it's of immediate use to the reader right now. So for example, if you've got a block sink, all you want from the writing is name of a plumber and the number. Doesn't matter about how you present that or imagery or structural design, that's all that they need. If you get that across, your writing has worked. It's immediately useful. The second factor is interesting. Interesting means that it will be of use, but later on. We often get this. We may read an article online and clip it with Evernote, for example, or we may see something in a magazine and tear it out and keep it for later. We're interested. It doesn't have an immediate use now, but we're filing it away, either mentally or physically, for the future. The third element is enjoyment. Now, enjoyment really comes from novels and great poetry and plays. It's not something you really expect from your business writing. In this case, enjoyment means it's easy to read, the message is clear, it's well structured, the reader doesn't have to read it more than once. Now, I want to stress to you that most writers, most good writers, find it hard to get one of these across. Very few of these will ever have all 3 of these factors, useful, interesting, and enjoyable, working at the same time. But you must have one of these in play. Let me show you how important this is by looking at the way that we all read. Every time you pick up a report or open an email, you make a judgment. Okay? You know what it's like, you come back, you've got 40 emails, you think, no, maybe, yes. We're judging what we're going to read before we open it. Okay? Now, let's take a look at this diagram where I'm going to show you how people scan online. Now, it should be no surprise to you. People read online in the same way that you read online. So if you're reading a newspaper article or Facebook post or whatever, you tend to look at the headline. Okay, especially if the headline is short, you'll read all of those 6 or 7 words. Then there's a very, very characteristic pattern develops. When you look at the screen, you can see it forms like an F shape, with the prong being smaller than the top part of the F. We read the big headline, we move down, we read less and less, and then maybe there's a subheader, which is the prong, we'll read that. As we get below that level, most of us are just scanning. We're looking for keywords. You know, we may be looking for a story about net interest margin, so we look for that phrase, or ambulance, we'll look for that word, but basically we're scanning. Now, let me tell you something terrifying. Even if someone loves your writing and loves your article, they're not likely to go below the fold. On a computer, the fold is where someone has to press a button to move down. Even for articles that are loved, only 1 in 5 people will have the energy or the inclination to press the down button. So even your best readers, 80% of them are only going to read what's on the first screen. That should tell you a lot about brevity and design. So there we are. Here's our first introduction to modern business writing. Next up, we're going to look at this triangle in much more detail.